So today we would like to talk about generational curse or generational ignorance. What is really holding us back? Is it generational curse or generational ignorance? What is really holding us back? The reason why I chose this topic is because in our belief system as Africans, no, and I'm not saying it is part of us, whether we like it or not. But then our interpretation of spirituality and then its application in our real world can be questionable. It can be questionable. We've accepted assumptions as facts, but that is not always true. And in the topic, generational curse or generational ignorance. When you look at Africa, there are so many myths that we've accepted as true. There are so many sayings, yadia to say no but ye and then for the purpose of our audience, ye the tree any brofni in so that we can get the message across. Generational ignorance or generational curse. What is really holding us back? Maybe I will be a best share or like our comment so that others can also follow along. So let's start with our first question. Are we truly cursed or we are ignorant? Once you will kase bia a tie kase before the ya dome ebi kra the ye asem ka sorry demo. Not to attack any religion, by the way. But the question is it true that we are really cursed? Am pase obi adome na se enimdie bi na ye lake enu nti na yehu se ne ye den ye tie na na. So today we want to really go into it and ask ourselves one or two questions and then how we can get ourselves away from whether it is generational ignorance or whether it is generational curse. Let's start with generational curse no. Akane no obi bibia yesi ebia sabusua we there ya dome omo abusua munyi da. Now when you come to accept it, some of them could be true that there is a generational curse. But if we go into it deeper, majority of what we classify as generational curse is not really generational curse. Majority of the things that we classify as generational curse is never generational curse, but rather generational ignorance. Generational ignorance in the sense that ofa ebushie bi anasa ofa nipaku bi. Let's take Africans as an example. If you look down, you realize that there is a specific thing that we may be lagging behind. But yandri the enko. It is hard to say from here so our great-grandparents to our grandparents to our parents to our uncles to our aunties, they've all gone through that same thing. They've all gone through that same repeated pattern or repeated mistake, and then they have been passed on to us. So automatically, let's use this as an example. Now, if you look further, you realize that their great-grandfather, not son or tie, and they won't ba, and also they are ba, and they ban ba, also they ba. Nobody has sat down to ask themselves, why is it that now let's look at another one. And I said, you will never be worthy. Now let's ask ourselves, there could be a reason why people in that family are not worthy. It is not necessarily a generational curse, but rather a generational ignorance about money, generational ignorance about how to create wealth. That is the reason why the family may be living in impoverishment, or may be living in abject poverty. Into a net topic, we are going to go down and look at what the essential or the foundational truth when it comes to these two topics, rather than embracing the peripheral details. Why is it that this family, everybody in the family is broke? There may be a WhatsApp or yeah, Juma na say. There may be a website untimi any business. It is not generational curse, but rather in the family, there's been some ignorance or there's been a lacking knowledge about how to create a business or how to sustain a business. And I want to. And that is what we need to demystify. That is what we need to tackle so that the family will break loose from what we classify as generational ignorance, which generational curse, which is usually what generational ignorance. And then we want to look at one thing. I've put down a couple of points. Are we calling everything a curse, or is just a way of us avoiding responsibility? Because say osha generational curse asem na ye kana se ka sabusia we na afrim bantu untimi ndiye abusia we na afrim bam nti untimi kra untimi nkwa aware pa. Automatically, what it does is that it creates a notion in your head that in my family nobody can be wealthy, in my family nobody can be a businessman. So automatically, what happens is that you don't even put in the effort. If it is business, you don't even put in the effort. If it is wealth creation, you don't even put in the effort. If it is you intentionally making sure that your marriage works, you don't even put in the effort. Because what you have to say, you are not going to put in the effort to change. What you have to say, in our family, nobody is wealthy. Everybody is poor, everybody is broke. So I'm not even going to put in the effort to change. That will make you what? That will never make you responsible, because it's a way of you avoiding responsibility. Why am I even going to put in the effort to become wealthy? Because me, and 99% of the time, these things are not spiritual. 99% of the time, these things are not spiritual. But in our context, in our culture, in our belief system as Africans, Ghanaians, Nigerians, we have come to accept these assumptions as facts. But assumptions are not facts. These are conventional way of thinking. Busa say yes, busa no be NDA no. And then why different? Then why shonko? You are following the same pattern. So until you break away from that pattern that is creating that problem, you also say that it is generational curse, but it's not. It is never generational curse, but generational ignorance. Let's look at one thing. You see how ignorant about money, parenting, and then growth keeps the cycle going. Poverty is a system, and poverty can be a cycle. Say di kan say busua bi wo ha omo de omagia to say di here or the phobia NPA or your busua mu da. If you don't break that, it will keep on going on and on and on and on and on and on. So the bell ba sa nim de na o papa na onim about sika na ambo ano no. Se eno na also de bobra onso unyeska. It is very simple. The kind of lifestyle that your uncles were living, the kind of lifestyle that your parents were living, if you are following that same pattern, then it was not yielding results. There is no way that if you are emulating that, you will yield results. You will not be different. It will never be different because you are following the same one, the same thing. But the challenge to you is that learn something new. What I'm going to do is I'm going to learn something new, and then I'll test the waters and see whether it will work or not. No, It's not a generational curse. It's because they were ignorant about the fact that you need to have proper parenting, so that proper parenting will have influence in the life of the child, which subsequently, they can pass on that knowledge to him. And it's in a wealthy people, they're able to pass on this knowledge to their children. That is why the rich keeps getting rich, or the wealthy keeps getting wealthy, because there was a predecessor who was very wealthy and not passes that knowledge, from generation to generation to generation. And essentially they will create generational wealth. Into one so they say you here. That's one and one born the ancient the fufra. It will be from generation to generation to generation to generation. In a certain household, ebia o yesiti mi ayiro hu ko school. Abushan bo homi no ma ko school pa, they have their PhDs, they have their masters, but ebia omokasa enye, how they relate with people is not good. It is not generational curse. Don't let us accept that. Oh, omodi nyakopon mo ma adwen adisia de, but suban de wa mo, it is not true. Maybe all their lives they were just paying attention to being bookish or nerds, but then they did not invest quality time into learning how to relate with people, how to communicate with people. Into a school power, a crutch in but or a hand time. A hand time is not a generational curse, but it's a generational ignorance which was not fixed from the childhood days. I don't know the idea. So it cuts across when it comes to money, parenting, growth, everything in life. If the foundation is wrong, you would definitely call it generational curse, but rather the foundation had a lot of ignorance. The foundation had a lot of ignorance. So it has become generational ignorance. It's as simple as that. And that is something that we need to invest time into to break. I see a break is our cycle. No, me the team be kasa. I usually take into consideration youth, from 20 years up to maybe 45. Those things we need to pay attention to, especially when it comes to money or wealth. Obra esi so oko school we or through TV sa when eduma. Also says what through CV sa o nye eduma. Until then what different thing can you change? Because you've come to accept, say, the formality is that we apply, you get a job. Those are conventional ways of thinking. Those are analogies. They work in a stable environment. But there are situations where you need to really sit down and ask yourself, why is this going on? Why is it that the ladies are very beautiful, the ladies are very smart, but then anytime they marry, they get divorced? O maame ware ye jano, o sister ware ye jano, onso aware ye jano, o ba no onso aware ye jano. We will be quick to accept from your belief system say a generational curse. No. Let's drill down. Let's go to the foundational truth. What is peculiar about this family, their character? That is where we need to analyze it from. And then after that, you put in that conscious effort to get the requisite knowledge to change your character. Now, when you have a generational case, it means you are walking away from being responsible. You are walking away from being responsible. And then one other thing, the role of unchallenged traditions. The role of unchallenged traditions. I say, and I make us say, yeah, belief system, no. Yeah, man, reni amani di. Now, so, one share, ebemo jini baby atumwa, enye no kre. One share, ebemo jini baby atumwa, enye no kre. Okwa abusua bi ma anaso okwa man bi ma say aha dey see ya na ye no, this is how we do it here, this is how we do it here. So they don't even put in any effort to change it. If it is not working, they don't put in any effort to change it. Inti uma Mrs. or no on debia o si asori them 24/7 and I say o si maybe 24/7, where it will not make her productive. A place that it will not make her productive. Also, another question, so automatically you also not be productive. We a parent, akra no say me nkra ya ma wo mu de mu nyina mu tinye. They are not smart in school. But you ask yourself, when was the last time, if you want them to be very smart, when was the last time I walk around? One kasa parent, oh yeah, why didn't say my book kind? Now my book ni kind, the child will also emulate what I'm doing. And to tell me, I'm a book kind, me ban so to me chair, book kind. The next child I'm a one also book kind. Nay, yeah, then twat was one also one about that same lifestyle, but the better no. So you realize that in that family, they become very exceptional academically. It's the same thing with wealth creation. Say financial freedom. You can't achieve financial freedom if you go with the notion of they say where are your results? Your results should do the talking for you. So if the results are not showing, don't attribute it to generational curse. Is generational ignorance. O laki bibi. Na saa de krona o laki no. Enye spiritual. Unhia nimdie. Sikasem ne nko ya unhia nimdie. Se aware ne nko ya unhia nimdie. Adwuma sem no business ne nko ya unhia nimdie. Obian ni ho a ode wakọ aduro so. There is this saying na ibi mu ka say ya bom nsem tokro. Sikatom nsema na ashe. Ya bom nsem tokro so ultimation kwayo. So we ask ourselves that sikane ba nsema, am I tracking it? Do I have knowledge about how to create a budget? Do I have knowledge about how to track my expenses? Do I have the knowledge of saving some portion of my money? Yenhwe free ho. Now, unisa ideas now, it means you lack that knowledge, so you are ignorant about why? Financial literacy. So what do you do to solve your problem? You put in intentional effort to learn about how to budget, how to track your expenses. Any kwanya ibi abefa so abede, ubesi usika. Unhu saade na, try it for maybe 3 months, try it for 6 months. Now, when say usika semna, you don't need obi or soothsayer, a prophet, an imam or a malam to give you any spiritual direction. The doorway to the spirit world is your mind. So if your mind is ignorant, you can never be successful in the realms of the spirit. So what I say? Say generational ignorance, any generational curse, yeah, this sameness of what? Then if you go to somebody who is a spiritualist, then the person should be able to help you. Ask yourself, you've taken all those boasters. Sometimes you even pray. You even fast and pray. We are not speaking against it. But the question is, has the situation changed? Has the situation changed? But ask yourself, have you put in that effort? So if you are not able to break from that cycle, it becomes a generational what? Ignorance, which you would think say you'll be na area. It is not true. It is generational what? Ignorance. Nimdie bi ana uni ana edi wachisa na odi awo ma ana wo ma so di awo onana. So it will continue in the family until somebody decides to break that cycle. You are not cursed. Uye bibinia, you are not cursed. Obian domain. Don't believe the stories that you see a domain we ma ana munina na be bibi. It is not true. If it is true, then no African or no black man should be successful. But as far as we are successful Africans or black men, it means that those things are myth. They don't exist. It's not true. Nemum, the Ebe Council say, I don't just say generational case. It's not always the case. And I say you are intentionally going to offend somebody. Because in our belief system, in our tradition, if you offend somebody and they curse you or they cast a spell on you, it will work. By a kayen dada sitting in because sometimes we don't want to be responsible, no. You say that because say a generational curse. It is not true. Cast your mind back in the family. Wabushiyam then our moya and untino munina muntimi muye business a entimi njina. Ebia mabushiyam ona na no mumpe no koreka. Nti e dia wo. So you are not faithful, you are not honest in your dealings with people. So what do I say? Ebia obano so na. She was like all over. She was for the streets. And into also ya wo no sasubani diwachi. But then until you come to the full realization that as a female, my body is valuable, so I'm not going to be on the streets. I'm going to keep myself. You will change the dynamics. Gentleman, no ebia wo fa no nom sa na no nom sa o papa nom so no wi. But then o sha asese o ye bi no wantimi anka because eno abia na o ye. Into also o ba na o ye bia untimi nka because eno abia na o ye. So if the child does not come to a full realization that my life is precious, therefore I need to break from maybe substance abuse, I bet what was so and no biana domain beyond domain. The next thing that we want to talk about, last but one, we also have this thing about people in the diaspora. Obu was o medium na me Ghana de medi here. Na eno menu den edi mechi abuchi de eno menu nya adwuma. That is why I'm saying that the mind is the doorway to the what? To the spirit. Now, if your mindset is not reset, if your mind is not fine-tuned to think in a clear manner, no matter your geographical location, things may not change. So naturally, if you are lazy, whether you are in Africa or you are in the diaspora, if you are still lazy, when you're in Dibia, obekasa will be near you, but it's because you are lazy. Enti bema na no substance abuse or Ghana no. Se wamba enye nimdie bia otukwan kra sansuba no de beko. So what happens is that generational ignorance knows no geographical location, but you need to intentionally seek the right knowledge so that you'll be able to break loose from it. And some knowledge na ye can yen school. You have to do that yourself. And it's video ya busa and then what can I do about it? You know what is going on in your life that may not be going on in the expected way. So ask yourself, what might I be doing like wrong, or what could I have done wrong in the past? Enfan koshe sunsun bia enfan koshe unana obeku anka okun ye wo no o ma me na ye wa obeye wa anka ye wo na anka oye den oye o. So if you are still with us and you are enjoying this session on generational curse or generational ignorance, what is really holding us back? I want you to like, share and comment. Echio bibia o share. Good evening, Mr. Kujo. Echio, say good evening, boss. Echio. Now, one other thing that we want to talk about finally, what true generational ignorance looks like. Yakabebre. You don't pray your way out of generational ignorance or generational curse. You don't pray your way out. And it's here and the word you don't pray your way out. Montinasi, mumbusa mo say, dena ya, anunti ye ma yedi here. Ne dena ya, ebe ma yedi. You can still pray if you're a believer. Pray. If you go, free nyame kremonia, which means start free nyame. But then, don't end there. Seek knowledge. Seek what? Knowledge. Don't live your life based on assumptions. Assumptions are not facts. Assumptions may work because they are working in a stable environment. So always demystify the narrative and then look at the essential truth. Look at the foundational truth. Say you didn't hear no krebe ne wom. You didn't hear part to say yesika semu nimdie ewo form. Ye kwa ware na enye ya part to say bia yesuban enye. It's not generational ignorance. Beton ade na ye nton it's not generational ignorance. E bia mi ndi mi huni. Nti no bia kramba o beton ade. Ye ton ade na ye nton e bia my personal communication, my interpersonal communication with people is questionable. Me kasa enye me sre me ton ade customers ba me hokra me sre me kasa enye nti e pamunipa. You understand? Those things, if you don't cure it, it will become a generational curse. But rather, it's generational ignorance about the fact that if you are somebody who is into sales, you need to look presentable. You need to talk nice to the people. You need to smile. What you're about to see, so ask yourself, how do you present yourself? Okasa krati saying, ibia okasa nye. Enye ona na bi na de scary face bi abeshi weni. No, you are ignorant about the fact that the way you communicate to men is terrible. The way you communicate to ladies is terrible. You are still broke not because ask yourself, when was the last time I'm in me trackies can say now but I get $1,000, this is how much I spend in a month. This is how much is left. If you are not tracking that, that's kind of back nowhere dinner the you may go broke. And if you go broke, enye wona na enye wabushia mu na emu eden. Enye oman ni mu na emu eden. Because oman na emu eden ni ibi mu so adiye. So to close us out, generational curse, generational ignorance, what is holding us back? Is it true that we are cursed? No. The truth is that knowledge will make you unfit to live in ignorance. Knowledge will make you unfit to live in ignorance. So if you are listening to me, or if you are watching this live, or maybe the recorded version, and your finances are questionable, start to put in effort to learn more about financial literacy. Papa Mr. Benda Akuma videos be brave on that. Say ota adiena say yenton don't attribute it to so be na ye check your surrounding. Maybe a ota adiena eho ho ni didi kra ti sen. Wan kasa onipa na ota adiena. Wa ho fama eti say how do you look? How do you communicate to people who come there to buy your food? Start questioning yourself around that area. Start questioning yourself around that area. And you see a difference. Don't be in a hurry to attribute everything to say no me and now so intina we heni and intina u sikasem enye entisa prefife nimdie. One kasa ask yourself honestly, be honest about yourself. What are you doing wrong? If you're able to answer that question, you'll be able to find that right knowledge. A bit me ama wa do ho free adie bia wo hu ni say eye no me no enye no me eno me nti ye din krofo bebre sika akomshefo bebre din krofo sika na so they were not able to find solution until you look at yourself, you examine yourself wholeheartedly and honestly and ask yourself what might be going on or what you might be doing wrong. You continue to see any retrogression in your life, any negativity in your life as something called generational curse, but rather in true fact, it is generational ignorance. You are ignorant about what will make it work.